peek behind the curtain. I always count down 3, 2, 1, and then we record. That way, Hutch, when he puts all the tracks together, has a good starting point. And I got to 3 this week, earliest I've ever been cut off. Usually I get down to 2, maybe 1.5, and Woody's got something to say, and then we talk for another 20 minutes, or Hutch has got something to go to make sure I mention. This week, 3. I didn't even get to 2, and Hutch stopped me. It's In Goal Radio, the podcast, presented by The Hockey Shop, source for sports, Langley, thehockeyshop.com. What was so important that you had to interrupt me, Hutch?
Just trying to get us all synced up, get us all on the same page.
I thought you wanted to talk about the goalie guide.
Oh, the goalie guide. Been flying this week. As many people know, we released a guide to goalie schools and coaches. It's a magazine-style flip book that you can see at ingoalmag.com and a searchable online directory, over 160 goalie schools in there, where you can search for whatever program you're looking for, wherever you would like to work with a coach. Maybe you'd like to go on vacation somewhere and throw in a little goaltending. Great place to go check it out. There is a contest ending pretty much as soon as you're listening to this, the 15th, late at night. We will shut down entries for a custom mask from CCM, but there'll be another contest following hot on its heels. So stay tuned, check out the guide, check out the directory. You can actually go into the searchable directory and find a school you're interested in, and there's a button there for the school that you can click on and send a note to them right from the directory before you forget. Just, you've got that question top of mind, send them a note. Hey, my little Johnny's been playing U11 here. Do you think your camp is a good place for him? Let him know. Start a conversation, and then when you've done that, send us a note too, because we love hearing from you.
All right, that was worth interrupting me for. That was solid. Hey, Woody.
You know, when I do the 3, 2, 1s when we're doing our videos, forever, I just went 3, 2, 1 and started talking right away, and it drove Hutch nuts.
Still do sometimes.
Had to work.
Yeah, you got to leave a space there.
Yeah, I know. I learned.
Doesn't
Mostly
sound like
learned.
it. Hutch is calling you out.
It's so good because with Darren's, I can see on the audio waveform where to cut it without even listening. I just know that's where the show starts. Woody, I can tell every time you're going to say from your waveform too, and I just chop some of those out for you. Not that one.
Woody, is that your process?
I'm trying to peace love dope this right now as I'm getting ripped to shreds on the podcast early.
Hey, congratulations. This is 299 in Goal Radio, the podcast.
So close to 300, guys. Can you believe the journey's been this long?
Well, speaking of long journeys, we got a great guest this week in Olaf Kolzig, who played 17 NHL seasons, Vezina Trophy winner, and we're going to hit 300 with another guy who is winding down an exceptional journey next week with Marc-Andre Fleury as our featured guest. So lots of exciting things as we get to a milestone here in the In Goal Radio podcast. Good times.
What's the favorite part about the Ole the goalie conversation?
I know what your favorite part's going to be. It's when I ask too many questions at the end, and as I say, just one more, I am compared to Dale Hunter at the bar after a game.
I was going to say,
I gave it away.
Woody.
Oh, let's delete that, Hutch. You're the boss.
No,
Just
don't
make a
delete
big
it.
long
He can't help himself. He can't.
Well, you asked me for the best. Okay, I guess I'm not good at teases or 3, 2, 1s. I'm going back to bed.
But you could have left it open ended.
Yeah, you got to check out the end.
Rewind. What's the best part, Woody? Pause. 3, 2, 1. Hutch, cut it here.
No way.
The best part was
you're going to learn. I love Olaf Kolzig. He had how would you describe his style?
Sick gear style.
Sick gear.
Oh my gosh! Long before most people were doing it. Some of the most detailed masks, the Godzilla on there, the setup on the pads and gloves when that was a rarity in the game. Yeah, just loved it.
And he was also, when we go back to Ken Dryden in terms of big goaltenders, but sort of the tip of the iceberg on that becoming a league-wide trend, size and goalies were sort of all small or trended towards small. As a matter of fact, we've heard from other goalies who were told they were too big. And Ole was a guy that played the game big and played the game different as a result. And he talks about that in this week's episode too.
we're in the final week of the National Hockey League season, and I don't know how much influence what you do right now has on the future. But if you were going to say it can carve out a path to change your fortunes, you would point to Jet Greaves, who's been recalled by the Columbus Blue Jackets, and they may be out by the time people are listening to this. But what he was able to do in being recalled in the absence of Elvis Merzlikins has been extraordinary, going 3-0, played 4 games in 5 nights with the American Hockey League tacked on, and it's created a conversation.
It should. In this tiny little sample of a season, 260 chances against, Jet Greaves is top 10 in the entire National Hockey League in goals saved above expected. His per shot performance relative to environment is not just the top of the NHL this season, and again, admittedly a tiny sample, but over the course of the 3 years, all the games he's played in the NHL, and again, they're call up here, call up there, often in difficult circumstances, and obviously these are going to juice the numbers because tough defensive environment, but he's outperformed that defensive environment at a level no one in the entire National Hockey League has over those 3 years. All he does is come up and get results. We're obviously biased. We are massive fans of Jet Greaves because we got to meet him at a CCM event in Montreal a couple of years ago. And anyone who's met him, especially from the goalie side, because he is a very passionate, student of the position, is also going to be a fan of him. He's just a great kid. So good to see him have the success late in the season, opening eyes, much like Dustin Wolf, that a 6-footer can have success in the National Hockey League. And so good for him. Hope he keeps it going because he's one of the good ones.
And they put him right in. He passed over Tarasov.
Yeah, and I don't know where Daniel's season is at in terms of health. You get this late in the season. I don't know what the circumstances, so I don't want to speak too much about it. Tarasov's certainly a really encouraging. Tarasov's a prospect who has so much upside as well, and just got cut in a really tough spot because of injuries. He requires waivers. He didn't get enough games in the NHL, but because of his age, injuries kept him from getting enough games. And because of his age and time in the league, he requires waivers. The Jackets didn't want to send him to the AHL because they thought he'd get claimed. And given the pedigree, it's very possible. So they kept him in the NHL, and it's not exactly a development league. It's a tough place to learn. He's been caught in a really bad spot, but I know a lot of smart goalie people that believe he's legit too.
You guys got to meet Jet in Montreal. I wonder who the next Jet will be as you head off to Calgary for a great weekend with Hockey Alberta. Hutch.
Yeah, not jetting off, though, driving off to Alberta, heading to Calgary this weekend because Hockey Alberta, the provincial organization governing hockey in Alberta, is now a partner of In Goal Magazine. So they have a series of development camps, as you heard when their goalie director, Matt Weninger, was a guest on the show not long ago. And this is the first one, the U15 group. We are going to make an appearance there. We're going to collect a little bit of content from some of the young goaltenders and the great WHL coaches who are a part of the camp. We'll be able to deliver some of that to goaltenders across Alberta and to the in-goal audience as well. I think big excitement about this is that they're trusting In Goal to be part of the development program for their young goalies and their coaches because they've got a well-developed coach mentorship program as well. So we're going to be bringing a lot of goalie education to their goalies and to their coaches, and we're feeling really privileged to be a part of the future of Hockey Alberta.
Little less privileged to be driving to Alberta with Hutch, though.
You guys driving together?
It's looking that way. Flights became a little problematic. My schedule's a little weird, so Hutch is going to have to put up with me. I think he might lock me in the trunk. Imagine 12 to 13 hours with me.
It's poor Kevin who's in trouble because Maddie's coming too, and the two of us team up, and we bully poor Kevin worse than we bully him on the show here.
If I'm in the trunk, I'm assuming Maddie's getting strapped to the roof. So listen, the last time I drove to Calgary was for Game 7 of the 1994 Stanley Cup playoffs, first round on a whim. 5 guys packed into a Volkswagen GTI. Might have been a cooler full of beverages in the back of that GTI. Overnight drive, Game 7, double overtime, Pavel Bure on Mike Vernon. Epic road trip. I'm not sure you guys are going to be able to live up to that, but we might have to ride a mechanical bull on Friday night. So if anybody's at Calgary, hit us up. Let us know where we should go.
Hutch, do you drive?
Yes.
Okay. Who's in the shotgun seat and who's in the back seat?
Oh, I'm the guest.
Oh,
I
on
gotta
this
be in
trip?
the back seat.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
Maddie will get the front seat. But I tell you this much, Maddie ain't driving. Not with me in the passenger seat.
Well,
I've been in an off-road vehicle with that kid before, and he scares the living.
I want some content from that trip.
Oh, great.
we're
Little
you want us to
GoPro on the
vlog
dash.
whole thing.
Just a little GoPro on the dash. Just give me a little conversation. 20
A little
minutes.
bit, it could
We'll
be
just
like an,
FaceTime you
like
from
an
the road,
episode of
Darren.
The Odd Couple.
Yeah. Be fun.
Hey, listen, Darren, I did want to just pull back a little bit on the late season call-ups because Jet's a great story. But we had one here last night, Nikita Tolopilo, getting his first NHL start and his first NHL win. A guy who 2 years ago was in the Allsvenskan, a Swedish second division. I had a hell of a year in the Allsvenskan, but his path up till that point, like he was on no radars anywhere until he got that opportunity. 1 year in the American Hockey League, late season call up, gets his first win. Big 6'6" goalie. I've watched him develop with the Canucks over the last 2 years and watch his game tighten up and come together. And so moments like that, it reminds me, we focus on only the success stories too, or the guys that get stretches and like Jet's an incredible story. But I'm reminded a little bit of Stuart Skinner. His first call-up was much like that. It was late in the season. It was one game. I can't remember the team they were playing. It might have been Ottawa. And they won the game. He got his first NHL win. It was a night where the Oilers poured it on and scored a bunch for him. But him telling me the following year as he gained some traction in the NHL for the first time, how important that late season one game call up was, because he got off the ice. Goalie coach Dustin Schwartz came up and they celebrated the win. First start, first win in the National Hockey League. It's a big deal. But immediately looked at each other and said, there's work to do. And so some of these sort of appearances late in the year that we can quickly gloss over or look over, and not Tolopilo, because he talked about how far he's come from his home in Belarusia, and this path and this journey and his parents, and it was really neat to see him have that moment. But these can also serve as springboards for these young goalies, even when they have success, even when they have a win. Something's different, something that never really clicked with them that needs to change in their game, that they take into the offseason and come back that much better. I remember Skinner that year went straight to the American Hockey League, and he'd been really flat in his development, and it hadn't, and just boom, took off like a rocket. So sometimes these late season opportunities for NHL goalies, young NHL goalies, not just a chance to build traction like Jet is, but even the one-offs can be a real springboard to what's to come.
Well, it's a carrot. It shows you that you can make it to that late. Now you want to be there all the time, whether you win or you lose. There's different motivating factors out of both of those results, but just getting there inspires you to work that much harder in the off season to get back there full time.
Especially if you get there on the road, eh? Never hungry league. It's a different lifestyle when you're traveling in the NHL. I know what 5 stars are. 5 diamonds are a different deal, and they live. I've had a few guys tell me that. Yes, I wanted to be here. It's a dream and everything, but after I got to travel, I really wanted to be here.
Favorite thing on our charters, whenever I've been able to travel, the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Oh my goodness!
Come on.
Oh yeah.
How grassroots of you, Darren.
Yeah, they're the best. I grab one on the way onto the plane, and I grab one on the way off the plane.
That's very Canadian prairies of you.
Thank you.
I love it.
I appreciate that. That's a hug.
It's a compliment.
Yeah,
100%.
I love it. The In Goal Radio, the podcast gear segment brought to you by The Hockey Shop, source for sports Langley, thehockeyshop.com. Things happening over there. Got the latest email the other day regarding some sales that are happening, which I check out. And then when I don't find what I'm looking for in the sales section, I go over just to the main. And then it's like, ooh. My latest thing, and I don't need anything right now, but my latest thing, you guys will laugh at this, is upper body. For some reason, I'm going down a track of upper body gear, and I don't even need anything. I just like checking it out.
Well, there is plenty to check out at the Hockey Shop and thehockeyshop.com right now, including today's gear segment is going to be the new Warrior Ritual X5, RX5 pants. but there's also the chest protector online, and we'll have that review next week. We'll do both separately. But a reminder, folks, to sort of go back to last week's gear segment. Bauer Pro Returns. They're all online now. The sticks, your chance to try out a trigger grip. If you don't want to do a custom order, you just want to try it once. They've got lots of models with trigger grips on there. Pads, gloves, blockers, Vasilevsky, Linus Ullmark. There is so much cool Pro Return Bauer gear. It's selling fast, but there's still inventory. Make sure you check it out at thehockeyshop.com, as well as all the new equipment and sales. And we know this, every time something new comes in, previous generations, they got to make room for the new stuff on the wall in the back rooms. And that means, as Darren mentioned, lots of great sales on as well. Your chance to get the previous generation models at a steep discount. So make sure to check it out in person at the Hockey Shop, Source for Sports Langley, and thehockeyshop.com.
Got a cool story for you that I was goofing around with in the garage. After we get to today's gear segment, dealing with the Warrior pants, you want to set this one up before you head over to Cam?
I would say that this is a departure. As much as quite often there are tweaks from one line to the next, this is a significant departure for Warrior on the pants side compared to previous generations. And because Cam is the expert on all things Warrior, I think we defer to him as he explains how. Welcome back to the Hockey Shop, Source for Sports, where it is my favorite type of day, dress-up day.
I was going to say standing room only in here, but that's okay.
We get to be chummy, buddy. Chummy. Nice and tight. I love playing dress-up. I love coming in here, trying on all the gear, and then leaving it on the floor for Cam to clean up after me. It kind of reminds me of when I was a kid. But now...
What do you got there? What are you wearing?
Why don't you clean up what exactly I'm wearing? This is the Warrior RX5. This is the RTL. So we learned this in the chest protector video. RTL is the high end. I'm guessing you've got the second price point because it says Pro.
Yes.
Don't ask me why the Pro line is the second price point. A lot of companies do it. It drives me nuts. But here we are.
Yes.
What is new? Because Cam, I like the fit. I'm not sure if these pants make my butt look big, but they feel nice.
Yes.
But there's some differences from the old Warrior pants.
We're going to call it like a call redesign.
Completely different.
Yes.
What's the first thing we notice?
Well, let's start with the waist and then move our way down.
Okay.
So, segmentation now at the waist. We pull out an older RX4 pant. We would see that this is one solid piece of plastic along the side. Used to cause a lot of folding to the pant and make it sit a little bit weird. This segmentation A will help it bring it tighter around the waist if you wish.
If you wish is key. We don't all want our pants to fit tight.
Exactly. Or
we're not all like you and your skinny jeans.
If you want it to flop out a little bit more to be able to tuck in your chest, once again, you have that ability to. So they've made it a lot easier with the overall fit of the pant, but they've kind of kept some of their hallmarks. Warrior's internal belt system returns the exact same as what we saw before. Okay. It is also removable as well if you wish to take it out. So, in terms of overall fitment wise, again, we still have a very, very similar style of fit that we've had in the years past. However, just a better overall improved fit around the waist because of that segmentation. So, moving down. Lace returns. Be able to, again, lace your chest in. So that front lace is kind of hidden right behind their, what we'll call neoprene elastic kind of crotch area, for lack of a better term.
Neoprene crotch.
Neoprene crotch.
Got it.
Be able to be able to fit that bigger, especially a Warrior jock in particular that does have that big plate in front of it. It definitely has that extra space to be able to accommodate for something of that size.
I am not wearing a jock under this, and yet there is still a bunch of space to accommodate something of that size.
So we will leave the cup check out for now.
Thank you, Cam.
You're welcome.
You just use that to tie down.
Moving down, which is something you noticed?
This is the one that jumped out to me, and I'm going to be honest with you. I was a little biased. I like the old way, but I understand that I do like this.
Typically,
listen, before we go to this, you did make the joke about, the neoprene.
Yes.
But like, when you have extra laces, don't you hate it? When it just sort of ends up, but you can actually just like tuck the extra lacing into that little pouch. I know it's this tiny little thing. Nobody's buying these pants because of it, but I gotta be honest, like that speaks to me.
Kevin's new favorite feature. Being able to tuck the lace in and make it go away.
Yeah. I'm a little OCD. I don't like laces everywhere.
He's genuinely excited.
This is a tighter look. I'm excited now. And it actually almost overshadows the fact that, as Cam was about to tell us,
the thighs
are now rounded.
Yes. typically in years past, we've seen that flat warrior-esque thigh. I think we measured it out to be about 14 inches wide at one point.
And it was fixed inner edge. So as soon as you close the legs, it basically built a wall. I kind of liked it. It was cheating central, but I kind of liked it. We've gone to a bit of more rounded look, but you still get that seal when you close the legs. It's still nice and tight.
More traditional rounded shape. Again, a little bit more ergonomical to bring those legs together now.
Right.
So a little bit easier in that sense. However, we haven't lost the thickness, which is important in terms
of a lot of protection. Yes. 100%.
And I'm holding the Pro, and it's quite substantial. Obviously, when we go into the RTL, you're going to get their hypercomp material as well. So again, we're going to help to aid in that protection level. That would be your big upgrade difference. You also see some of the finishing differences between the two if we're looking at the thigh specifically. That leather cap rounding.
Little higher wear material.
Exactly. However, that said,
it's a really, like, as we do this, it's like, this is out of the box. And I'm like...
He's getting his leg up going today. Very flexible pants. And that's always been a Warrior staple and a hallmark, especially with their plates. So, if he's done moving around...
I had a little too much coffee this morning.
Last thing I'd like to call out is the redesign of the hip pads as well. So, they've changed the way that they've segmented their hip pads in particular. Before, there used to be some free-floating pieces and whatnot. Now they flex very well, as Kevin was just showing off. Easy for, lunges. I mean, hopefully you're doing, butterflies and not jumping jacks while you're in the net, but that's fine. Whatever you need to do to keep the puck out of the net, right?
That was a lunge, Cam. That wasn't a jumping jack.
No, you were close to doing a jumping jack.
I came out of the lunge into a jumping jack. I'll give you that. But
quick last little call out. Again, to correspond with the Warrior knee pads themselves, we still have a lace-in tab on the inside of the thigh. So you can lace in your knee pads to your pants if you wish.
Comfy, mobile. Okay, so they don't have the flat front, but as Cam said, a more traditional fit and feel without losing a lot of the tech developments that Warrior was noted for. I do like
the new waist,
the segmented waist, and the ability to tuck, untuck. We saw the Warrior chest protector last week. It feels like it'll be a really nice complementary piece.
Exactly. So if you want to know more, give me a call, 604-589-8299 or 1-800-567-7790, or check it out at thehockeyshop.com.
I love getting your evaluation. And if you can, give me your first blush thoughts about those pants, and then now that you've had a chance to think about them a little bit.
Well, my first blush thoughts were, and we talked about it in the video, like I wore for the longest time and really liked Warrior's cheater pant. There's no other way to call it. Like they fixed the front of the face, which was square across, like it just formed a wall, and the inside edge, it was a fixed corner. So when you squeeze those legs together, it just formed this like giant straight wall. So every rebound off of them popped out front. No pucks went through. These pants obviously are rounded barrel thigh protectors, more traditional. I'm not sure whether they're NHL legal or not, but they certainly look like they might be. And so you take all the things that Warrior's done, the way they've segmented their pants, the way Warriors pants have always been out of the box, like broken in. You don't need, because of the way they construct them, it's just on the ice and go. Its pants tend to be a little stiff for a couple skates. That's never been a problem. But they also had that flat front. That's gone. There's a little bit of a shock for me to see the difference. And there might be guys who still use the old ones that are going to the hockey shop right now and looking for the sale item on the X4 generation so that they can stock up. It's like when the PGA Tour or the the RNA or whoever governs golf equipment rules changed the grooves on wedges. I immediately went to Golf Town and bought a bunch of wedges with the old illegal grooves so I could have more spin. So I'd have a couple generations worth. There might be some guys that are looking at this going, I want that big flat front. But I do like the way that fits with the barrel, and I understand the trend going towards something that's a little more traditional looking and traditional feel by Warrior. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there's some beer leaguers out that are like, I need to stock up on those old ones with the big flat face.
I'm not sure you're really allowed to go down this path or whether it's considered to be proper. But Woody, what size of pants do you wear?
I wear the biggest pants that I possibly can,
You do.
Darren. It's usually a large. I have worn XL in the past because, again, like inner belts,
Inner
right,
belt.
which aren't legal in the NHL.
But can they
like
not get a
CCMs.
little clunky at the bottom?
It's length for sure,
Yeah.
but that's the thing. Like Warriors too, the way they segmented them, where the front sort of just slid over. You know what I mean? Like it didn't bunch up. The panels sort of like moved over top of each other rather than catching. And so having it a little extra size in the Warrior ones, I didn't find bother me. But you're right. The biggest thing is length and starting to get interference with the pads when you drop into the butterfly. That can certainly be an issue and something you have to keep in mind. But let's be honest. If you're not cheating, you're not trying at my age. So anything that adds a little bulk and a little size, I'm all over.
Do you know what size Matthew wears? Touch?
No,
Would he be
actually, I
XL?
don't. I assume they're as big as you can get at his size, but I'm actually not sure.
XL length, medium waist, skinny little bugger.
Yeah, no kidding. Hey, it's funny. I think it was last week, you were teasing me about having used the Roberto Luongo pads because I just had to. And way back in year 1 of In Goal, Warrior sent us some pro return Pekka Rinne pants, and I wore those for the longest time as well. And I'm not quite Pekka's size either. But there was just something about walking into that beer league dressing room with the Nashville logo on the pants and Rinne stitched into them that just made me feel extra super cool.
That's funny. On the subject of that, you just tweaked my brain. There's stick and puck at City National Arena, and my desk, my cubicle, is about 3 rows, 3 desks away from the window that overlooks the rink, and every now and then you'll hear pucks going off. So I was out there maybe a month ago looking down at the stick and puck, and there was a guy, maybe 35, full Calgary Flames gear, practice sweater, pants, gloves, helmet, everything. And he was pretty good. And we were trying to figure out who he was. So we went down and tried to see the register, but he hadn't signed in properly. And so I still don't know who this guy is. But he had pro shot, he had everything, and he had all the gear, except he took his hockey bag out to the bench with him. And I don't know whether he was taking his skates off and jumping in his car in his gear. Or, like, there was a couple of things that didn't fit, but then there was a whole bunch that did. So it's funny. You see guys with the logo and stuff, and you go, did that guy play?
I don't know, man. If he's in the show and he's got an NHL shot, it might have just been the Rolex he didn't want to leave in the bag in the room.
True. But then he was at Stick and Puck, and he was there a few times. So what
you gotta
how many
you
former
started
pros
this
show up at Stick and Puck?
I was so
was Calgary in town, Darren?
No.
No,
I was
he wasn't
so
just getting a
impressed
little
that-
extra.
You started sleuthing, but
Yes.
now you need to continue. Like, finish the job, Darren.
It was a 3-person sleuth job.
Finish the job.
And if you pay by your credit card, they've got your name. So we checked that. He didn't pay by credit card.
It's pretty
And
easy
so I
to
was
just
on
say,
Hockey
"Hi, I'm
DB.
Darren Millard."
The people that had signed up, I ran all their names through Hockey DB because you don't know
Of
which
course
person's
you did.
which out there.
That's good.
Yeah, I still don't know who this guy is, but I'm very curious. And he was warming up a couple of goalies out there, and he was just ripping shots when those guys weren't in. It was tons of fun to watch, and it gave us a bit of a project to do. So those are the Warrior pants that we got to dissect and break down. I'm with you on wearing as big as you can. I just worry about the clunkiness at the bottom. So thanks for kindly telling me what size you wear.
Full disclosure, there is nothing about me playing goal that isn't clunky, so might as well have the biggest gear while I'm doing so.
And it's not the cheater pants. I call them the advantage pants.
I feel like that's something I might have to wear when I get into my 60s and have bladder problems.
Those are the clean pants. Stop It Goaltending You, the app parent segment with David Hutchison coming up before we hear from Stop It Goaltending You.
Yeah, we talk a lot about all the new content every week at Stop It Goaltending You. Daily primers this week with Brian DeCord on becoming an ethical goalie. So really interesting 5-part series, and a reminder that every week with the Stop It Goaltending U app, you get 5 1-minute primers every day. Just a quick sort of watch the video in 1 minute, take it with you. Keep yourself sort of constantly learning little mindset tips, little tricks that Brian's learned and Brian and his staff have learned over the years. We've also got a video breaking down the Frozen Four goalies from the NCAA championship over the last weekend, and a drill of the week 1v1 rushes with a cut into the middle. So they walk you through a drill diagram. They've got examples from the NHL of those types of scoring chances and provide a few tips. That's a great one for coaches and goalies alike. You can take it onto the ice this summer. The Stop It Goaltending U app brings you 25 years of Stop It's goaltending experience into a nice, easy to digest format. Like I said, you want to spend 1 minute each day on the primers. You do that. You want to deep dive a little bit and watch other goalies and break down how they play, see how it can apply to your game. You can do that with a weekly video. And they've had drills, fresh drills, each of the last 2 weeks. So more of those coming on the Stop It Goaltending U app. And as I tell you every week, not only do you get all that great content on their app, you get access and an in-goal premium membership. So the best of theirs, the best of ours, combined for one monthly fee, included in your Stop It Goaltending U membership, a membership to In Goal Magazine Premium, the best of both worlds for goaltenders.
Hutch.
That's another thing that I look for in the audio track of the broadcast. I see Darren's 3, 2, 1, and I know it's time to start the parent segment when I look at it because I see that one little peak. Hutch. I could jump in before it, but now I sit and wait for it because it makes me just feel special, Darren. You wanted us to start a vlog of our trip across Western Canada to Calgary, and now maybe we need to start a show in the kitchen because of today's parent segment. We've talked before about helping your young goalie develop independence, not just to grow as an athlete, but to thrive in life. This week, I wanted to be just a little bit more specific, inspired once again by listening to our feature guest. As you will hear, and many of our past guests have shared, the jump from junior to pro is a huge one. And one of the biggest adjustments is simply having to look after yourself. There's no more billets. There's no more parents. There's no dorm cafeterias to help you out. Now it's time for shopping, paying bills, cooking, often for the first time for a lot of these guys. But the truth is, learning these skills even earlier can pay off. So this week, parents, I have some homework for you. Teach your child to cook something. Of course, keep it age appropriate. I'm not suggesting your 7-year-old goalie go fire up the barbecue or play unsupervised in the kitchen, but do make sure that little Johnny or Susie is one step closer to being able to take care of themselves. Maybe they'll end up with a billet family that only cooks dinner for them and they'll have to make their own breakfast and lunch. That happens a lot. Maybe mom and dad are having to race home from work to get to the evening practice, and if they can look after themselves a little bit better in the kitchen, they'll be able to eat healthy and prepare themselves for hockey and not just the quick convenience meals that a lot of us are forced to use. It's easier and often faster, of course, just to do it for our kids, and we all do that. But take this week, please, just to pass on one skill. Teach your goalie to cook a hot breakfast, scrambled eggs, oatmeal, something nice and easy instead of just toast and cereal this time. Show them how to make a smoothie, maybe with some fruit, yogurt, maybe a scoop of protein powder. For the older kids, maybe teach them how to make their favorite pregame meal, something that one day they're going to have to make on their own before they head to the rink. I think we need to face it, guys. Whether your goalie is away from home or just managing a busy schedule at home, getting the right fuel is really important, and it's not always easy. So just like you give them the tools to succeed on the ice, this week I want to see you all give them the tools to succeed off the ice as well. It's a pretty rewarding feeling to get the message from your child to say they've just stopped at the grocery store, grabbed what they needed, and cooked their own healthy meal before heading to the rink. So what's on the menu this week for you and your goalie? Let me know. parents@ingoalmag.com.
You remember the first meal you learned how to make? Like where you felt like a grown-up?
No, and that's probably why I still don't cook.
I feel like it's probably scrambled eggs as a youngster.
That's a good one. Mine was grilled cheese.
Oh,
just
wow.
the idea of putting something on there and cooking it and flipping it over and being able to actually eat it. And I know, I realize it's not a meal, like it's not like cooking a steak, but when you're 14 or 15, that was a heck of an accomplishment.
Well, and it's so easy to screw those up because you can't see them burning on the bottom.
Yes.
Yeah.
Listen, I feel like everybody had that, like probably a lot of people, it's like pancakes were a big one, right?
Yeah.
Like mixing the batter, you know, whether it was with dad or with a grandpa or mom, or feel like pancakes, I probably the only thing I make, which probably, again, speaks to the fact that I can't cook.
First meal you ever made, send it in to us. All right? I'm curious. Or the first grown-up meal.
Grown up.
You feel
pancakes
like
are growing up.
I don't craft dinner. Don't put in craft dinner. That doesn't count.
That's not what we mean by a healthy meal.
I screwed up
folks.
craft dinner the first time, so I'm embarrassed to tell you that.
I screwed it up for a giant group. We had about 15 or 20 people on a camping trip, and I was left to make the craft dinner.
Ooh.
And I read boil it for 8 minutes. So I put it all in the water, and then I let the water boil, and then I left it for 8 minutes. So it had been in there for probably 20.
Ooh.
And it was just the worst mush ever. Now I never use the clock. I always taste.
First meal that you remember making. Hutch, where do the people send that to?
Parents at ingolmag.com.
And we love hearing from all of you. The most random notes, if it's on your mind, send it to us because we read it all and we share it with each other. And some of it, Hutch won't remember. What does that have to do with anything? And then we talk it over and go, oh, yeah, there was the reference there in episode 274 that we're discussing this, that, and other. A lot of it revolves around Woody's various adventures.
I am an adventure.
You are an adventure. Visual Edge Pro Reads. We've got Cam Talbot this week as we continue to benefit from the expertise of Visual Edge.
Yeah, and a perfect combination this week with the Pro Reads because it's a flash screen or a moving screen. And Cam's been so good in this format. It's been nice to have him back in. We did some of these with him when he was with the Minnesota Wild 3-4 years ago and had a chance to sit down with him recently as part of our partnership with Visual Edge. And this one brings both of those worlds together. We've talked about Visual Edge as a vision and cognitive training tool. Use your computer and their glasses and their program to help find and see pucks better. You take their Visual Edge test, you get a score, it breaks it down into multiple different components of sports vision, and then develops a program, again, on the computer, simple. You can use it 15 minutes a day or go longer, that will help you see pucks and the play better. And this flash screen, as Cam tells us, is a great example of one of the skills he believes has improved significantly in the 3+ years since he switched to Visual Edge. He doesn't think it's a coincidence that all of his NHL All-Star Game appearances are since making that switch. And so having those bodies move through and finding a puck on the other side of a flash screen or a moving screen, one of the most difficult to manage in the NHL today, is something that he believes his training with Visual Edge has improved. Now, of course, there are other elements, and Pro Reads is all about sharing how goalies make decisions on the ice and why. And Cam explains them all in this week's Pro Reads. When to shift from short side to middle, what factors determine that, and the importance, because this flash screen comes off a rush initially into the zone that turns into more of a settled play in zone opportunity. But we watch as Cam explains how he manages the rush and how his depth decisions allow him to set himself up early to manage this flash screen. It's all in our latest Pro Reads presented by Visual Edge. Of course, you can find that at ingolmag.com. And one of we've got close to 300 of them now, Hutch, almost 40 different goaltenders walking you through saves every week, doing video breakdowns to help goalies of all ages and skill levels think the game differently, think the game better. It's a perfect combination with Visual Edge because they'll help you see the game and see the puck better.
I tell skaters all the time that the flash screen is more effective than a static screen. You may feel like you're getting more accomplished standing right in front of the goaltender, but being able to work on the moving screen or flash screen and timing it right and having a bit of chemistry built in with the shooter it's really effective. And it does take timing with the shooter to be able to read off you and you read off them. That makes it more difficult than a static screen.
Yeah, it's a little tougher too sometimes for the guy standing in front of that. It's funny, I had this discussion recently with Brock Besser because before the Canucks traded JT Miller, those two on the power play were deadly last year. Brock actually was top 4 in the league, 17 goals scored directly as a result of his screens, and a lot of that interplay, like he would move into the short side to force the goalie into the middle. And it's funny because this is part of this week's, it's like, hey, if the guy's moving into the short side lane, I can go to the middle because I know his shooter's not going to shoot at him because he's now in that space, or it's less likely to get through. But they got to the point where it's like, okay, I'm shifting into the short side. As soon as the goalie shifts into the middle, shoot to the short side, I'll get out of the way. And there's a little hazard pay involved there because JT broke his hand with one of those shots when the release was before he got out of the way. So reality of going to the net, but man, the interplay at the NHL level, I think it is one of the most difficult things for young goalies to sort of adjust to and learn how to manage. And as Cam does in this week, there are strategies here. As much as sometimes it's just find the puck, there are cues and ways to help you find it more effectively, more efficiently, and more often. And that's why we love things like Pro Reads breaking it down for us.
Max Pacioretty and Mark Stone had it dialed in when they played together in Vegas. And Mark Stone with Jack Eichel have developed the same type of chemistry. And we've got shots like Pacioretty and Eichel coming at you, adding a flash screen. Wow. But I think
you're lucky to stop those ones when you can see them.
Well, exactly. And I think some of that goes to just Stone's awareness on the ice. He has instincts that are top 5 in the National Hockey League, being able to read plays. That's why he's such a good player with the takeaways. But the flash screens are difficult. Even the static screens, I don't know how people see around, because I get stuck right behind the person and I don't move. I don't cheat far enough. And then I just throw up my hands and go, I was screened. Even in my age appropriate league, I get stuck there.
And it's not usually one person screening you. Like, not only, I mean, obviously in the National Hockey League, you get these crazy multi-layered screens, but you got to fight your own defenseman in most of those cases too.
That is it.
Yeah, one of the best drills that it's probably my favorite drill I learned at Eli Wilson's camp, where it's simply having a goalie look to one side of a screen and shooting to the other. And when kids get in there the first time, they find it next to impossible, because when a major junior player releases a shot from the hash marks and you've got to get to the other side of the screen to go get it, it's incredibly difficult. I love that drill, not because of the screen factor, but because it teaches patience. Because the only way that you can actually make that save is not leave until you see the release. It's got to go from being a guess to being a patience thing. And I've worked with a lot of goalies using that drill to improve their patience in the game, not just their work on screens, and find it's fantastic.
One of the tips that I've gotten over the years from some goalies is sort of where to look over the screen. If it is a stationary static screen, Darren, like making sure you look not over the shoulder beside that player's head if you're tall enough to see around it, but actually look at the edge of the shoulder. So have your head lined up to the screening forwards, like right on the seam of the shoulder rather than over his shoulder. Because then when you drop, you should, in theory, be able to maintain a sight line down the side of his arm versus dropping in behind him, right? Because you're on the edge of his frame rather than in the middle of his frame. So where you set up relative to his head, if you're looking over his shoulder, the edge of his shoulder rather than over his shoulder can help you see the puck longer when you inevitably have to start moving or going down. The other one, we had a great Pro Reads, not to throw it back to Pro Reads for all this, but we had a great one with Joseph Wall just about a month ago in our Pro Read section, where he talked about sort of separating the upper and the lower body when managing screens. And so trying to maintain a stable base and then look around with the upper body without moving too much and staying square in his feet and in his base as he used his upper body to sort of look around and over. Now, it helps when you're taller like those guys, but I think those are just two examples of some of the advice that you'll find at ingoalmag.com in our premium subscription, especially in those Pro Reads. There are so many different aspects that go into this. We have like an 11-minute video with Matt Murray on how to manage screens. It's one of the best ones we've done. He's a real thinker of the game. And so There is no one simple solution, but there's all these different elements that go into it. And I think we've covered a lot of them over the years over at In Goal Mag and In Goal Premium.
I remember that Matt Murray video. I got to go back and use that as a refresher. I do believe, just like if a player totally fans on a shot and you think it's going high glove and it beats you along the ice, you should be able to appeal that and have it taken off the board in men's league. Same with tips. If a guy goes to tip a puck and you play the tip and he misses the puck completely and it beats you, you should be able to appeal that. Like, he failed. That shouldn't count.
Well, hey, I mean, I'm all for as many appeals as we can.
Take it off your stat line, at least. Woody would do that, I'm sure.
We talk about the difficulty. Let me just give you guys and give our audience a little number here. Quite often screens force you, as Hutch said, the idea is to see the release so you can actually make a reactive save on the other side if you're moving across the screen. But the reality is, quite often what it reduces us to is shifting into a space and maybe not being able to see it clean the whole way. So you're just trying to get your body behind a space. So quite often you end up sort of shifting or sliding, or you end up moving into that space on your knees. Now, obviously, if you can see the release, hopefully you get a glove on and all those elements, but quite often goalies end up shifting, which is why on a layered screen, if there's more than one person between you and the shooter in the National Hockey League, if that shooter hits the top corner on either side, it goes in over 40% of the time over the past 2 years in the NHL. That is a higher percentage scoring chance if you can hit a top corner than a breakaway. So there's a little food for thought when we talk about how difficult screens are and how hard it is to manage these for goaltenders at the National Hockey League level. And every goalie coach and every goalie I talk to say it's one of the hardest parts of the game right now at the highest level. The numbers back it up.
Save or not, we made progress with the goalie dictionary. Thanks to Hutch with the flash screen.
Well, we did. I was having a little bit of fun with this week's pro read, and I had Darren in the back of my mind when the term flash screen came out. Darren is a big proponent of us creating the goalie dictionary. I'm sure we still will do that. So if you go check out this week's pro read, we just overlaid a dictionary-like definition of the flash screen, because we know not everybody's as familiar. We're going to have some goalies who this is a completely familiar term. It's something they understand inside and out, but I know we've got a lot of goalie parents listening to the show as well, watching the pro read so they can learn to help their young goaltender. And so we want it to be accessible to everybody.
I wonder how many words or terms we'd need to be able to put out a book on Amazon. Goalie lingo. Shh. Oh, sorry.
We've already told all the shooters how to score. Now we're going to tell everybody else how to get something on Amazon.
Well, Woody edited out half the first block, so you can take that out.
I literally was thinking of that on the dog walk last night, Darren.
You guys can punish me when we publish the dictionary. When we get to the word sieve, you can just put a picture of Woody.
Okay, that's actually a really good idea.
Yeah. Warm-up stick, all of it. It's all going to be there.
Oh, warm-up stick. I need my picture in that one.
I remember somebody telling me as a child, you're about as useful as a screen door in a submarine.
That's pretty good.
Speaking of sieves.
That's really good. Might use that too. Episode 299. This is the first time Olaf Kolzig has been with us, is it not?
It is, and that was, we lead with that kind of surprise that we haven't connected over the years. He was, as you guys mentioned, the gear style. When I first got into this as a writer and as a learning the goaltending position, he was sort of at his prime, right? Like my first year in the league, covering the NHL was 2000, and he was the Vezina Trophy winner. So deep regrets that we didn't do this sooner, but man, it was a great interview, and I think everybody's going to enjoy this one.
The feature interview brought to you by NHL Sense Arena.
NHL Sense Arena, it's one of the best tools available for training your game away from the rink, as we all know. In fact, it lets you work on skills that you can't often work on the ice. It's not just a replacement for on-ice training. In many cases, it's even better. So obviously that includes things like the neurocognitive drills. It's even got baseline concussion testing built into it. But it also gives you other options that you can't really do in practice on the ice so well. Would you like to face a shooter who hits the exact same spot every time? Pretty hard to get that on the ice. NHL Sense Arena can give that to you. Would you like to know exactly what your reaction time and puck tracking are doing? NHL Sense Arena gives you data that you'll never get on the ice. And as we were talking about earlier, guys, would you like to train against screenshots? That is tough to do in practice. As Woody just said, few players want to stand there and risk themselves in practice, even though screens are one of the biggest challenges goalies face at the higher levels of the game. But you can get all the screen training you would like in NHL Sense Arena. And the best part, the rink is always open. You don't have to wait for practice. You don't have to spend on expensive private ice time. You just get quality, targeted goalie training anytime, anywhere, maybe even on the road to Calgary this weekend. Train as often as you want, in season or out, with NHL Sense Arena. Visit sensearena.com and, of course, use the code IGM50 to save even more.
Olaf Kolzig with us on In Goal Radio, the podcast, the NHL Sense Arena feature interview. Enjoy.
Really excited to welcome to the In Goal Radio podcast. First time guest, long overdue. Ole Kolzig, long time of the Washington Capitals. I can't believe it's been this long and we've been doing this podcast for about 5-6 years. And when I realized I hadn't had you on, it felt like a major omission. How are you? First off, how are things?
I'm good. I've been retired 13 years, or 15 years, 16 years almost. So it's easy to kind of forget people when they're not in the league anymore. But no, I'm doing good. Like I said, things are pretty good in Capland right now, and happy to see Ovi finally get the record so that we can just focus on getting some good momentum going into the playoffs.
Well, it was a tweet of his that reminded us we hadn't had you on. But I first want to update people on your role with the Capitals, because you're still involved on the development side, particular to goaltending. Maybe just let people know how that sort of looks for you. Maybe not so much on a day-to-day, but overall.
Yeah, so I'm part of the player development department. Up until about 5 years ago, it was myself and Steve Richmond, and I looked after basically all our prospects, and not so much from a skill development standpoint, but teaching these kids how to be pros. When they leave junior hockey, college hockey, and come over from Europe, it's a big adjustment. And so my role was to kind of help these kids along and help them develop timetable off the ice so that they can become consistent on the ice. Whether it's taking care of their bills and their rent and insurance, all the little stuff that these kids never dealt with when they were billeted at home. Teaching them how to do laundry, some of them. We've had our nutritionists help these kids in grocery shopping because, again, they've had billets or their parents do most of the grocery shopping for them. So that was my role initially. And then as the years went on, we hired Brooks Orpik, obviously a terrific player and an all-world pro, and there's probably not a better guy that could help these kids along. And then Jim Slater, formerly of the Atlanta Thrashers, Winnipeg Jets, another all-world pro. So we've got a really, really good group. And so now I've kind of tailed back more to just the goaltending and our junior prospects when they get drafted. The three of us kind of travel all over and establish relationships with these guys so that when they turn pro, we've already, got a relationship, and then we can move forward in helping them develop. So it's a really good group, and I'm having a lot of fun doing it.
Such a crucial role too. The hundreds of interviews we've done over the years, so many guys have told us, maybe they'll get to the NHL and they'll talk about that jump out of college or junior to pro as being a much bigger step than eventually going from the AHL to the NHL. And a lot of it is learning that. We hear that all the time, learning how to be a pro. As the landscape shifts and so many young prospects end up starting in the ECHL, how important is it to have that connection and have somebody they can go to with questions no matter what league they're in?
Well, so I'm sort of unique in that I can cover any question that a guy has. I was a first-round draft pick. I made the NHL my first year. Got sent back to junior. I spent 2 years in the East Coast League, spent 4 years in total in the American League, became a backup in the NHL for a number of years, became a starter, became a star. Then I had to settle back down into kind of a mentor role for my last year or two, and then retired. So when I talk to these young guys, and there's not a question I can't answer, and I'm a big advocate of the East Coast Hockey League. I think it got a bad rap back in the day. Our organization probably utilizes the East Coast League more than most in the NHL, and we have a great track record. You see all the goalies that have come through there. So for us, it's a really easy sell when we get our prospects and we tell them, listen, we have a plan for you. It's not a punishment. This is where you're going to go. And then we tell them about all the guys that have gone through and have done the same thing. And then especially when we say Kerry or Braden Holtby and Philip Grubauer, then all of a sudden their eyes light up and go, really? They were down here? And look, the careers that they've had. So um, it's vital to have somebody. We like to look at ourselves as big brothers. We're not managed. We try not to be management. We're not coaches. And we try to establish a level of trust with these players so that when something comes up and they don't necessarily feel comfortable to go to the coach or go to the GM, maybe even to their agent sometimes, they can come to us. And, if we don't have the answer, then we'll do everything in our power to try to help them. And so I think it's a vital role. Like you said, the biggest jump, and we say the same thing, the biggest jump is not American League, the NHL. It's junior to pro hockey. And I think more times than not, guys really get their eyes open when they finally play that first East Coast League game or American League game and go, whoa, this is a different level of hockey.
I love that you guys, and I was going to say Logan Thompson, another example. Clay Stevenson, somebody we've gotten to know. I mean, he had offers where other teams were promising him American League right away. He chose you knowing it was the ECHL, I think in large part because of that support. And so
we're very transparent. And we tell these guys, and we told Clay right out of the gate, this is our plan. And I think he really appreciated that. We weren't blowing smoke, and I think that's what he loved about our group.
Yeah, and I like I said, I love the support that you offer at that level because it is amazing. I'm not going to name names or organizations or anything, but the amount of kids that I talk to that start there and feel like they're just on their own. And as you said, it's become such an important development league to leave it alone, and it's becoming fewer and fewer teams, but it still exists. So kudos to the Capitals for being way ahead of the curve on this one. I wanted to touch base a little bit, on current events. What it was like to watch a guy who was a teammate, for so many years, later in your career, early in his, have a moment like that this week. And then the tweet, the 5 assists. You seem genuinely surprised that he remembered that. Is that a statement about who he is?
Yeah. So the whole run was just incredible. 3 years ago, there was a stat that came up, and then I all of a sudden I opened the record books and I looked at Gretz's goals and then I looked at Ovi's goals and I'm like, my God, he's only so many goals away, and he's got, that's maybe 4 years ago. He's got 4 years left, but you're thinking, okay, I mean, he's 39 now, and there's a point with every athlete where you just fall off a cliff, and so you're like, oh God, like, just hope it doesn't happen to Ovi, but you're like, he's so close. And I go, you never in your lifetime thought there was a record that Wayne Gretzky had that was going to be breakable,
Right?
And so, after last year, you're like, okay, this is, can he do it this year? I mean, he's 39. And then he starts out like one of the best starts he's ever had in his career. He breaks his leg, first major injury he's ever had. And now you're like, oh boy, can he get the momentum back? And he comes back from the first game back, and you're like, ooh, he doesn't look good. He looks a little slower. And then the second game back, I think he scored 2 goals, and then he got another goal, and he got 2 goals. And you're like, wow, here we go. And it was unbelievable. He never felt any pressure. I think he lived for the moment. He's always lived for the moment. That's the way Ovi is. He's that kind of character. And then just to see the exuberance, not just from his teammates in the organization, but the NHL, Wayne Gretzky, Wayne's wife, everybody. I think it was a great moment for the NHL. And but I think now that it's done, I think he's happy it's over, and he can just focus on getting the Caps rolling into the playoffs and hopefully have a long run and maybe a Stanley Cup again. But I sent him a text shortly after, knowing that he was going to get thousands of texts. But we've had a pretty good relationship. I felt like I was a big brother to him when he first came in, and so we've always sort of had a close relationship. And so I texted him and I told him, congratulations, what an accomplishment. You've become such a great leader. You're such a role model and somebody these kids can look up to, yada, yada, yada. And he texts me back and he goes, thanks, babe. And that's just typical Ovi. Thanks, babe, but you're a part of my history too. And I go, haha, you only scored once on me. And he goes, no, you assisted on 5 of my goals. And I'm like, I didn't even know that. How does he know that? And I just shows, and I said, that's kind of what it says about Alex Ovechkin. He understands the history of our organization. it started back when we won the Stanley Cup in 2018. And as a staff, we came on the ice and everybody was the players had already done their laps and they're getting ready to leave for the dressing room. And Ovi had the Stanley Cup and he was skating by, and out of the corner of his eye, he saw me and he turned left and came right to me and he goes, "Can you believe we won this?" And he handed it to me with the biggest smile. And I thought, this guy gets it. Like he knew that we fell short in 98 and that I'd been a part of the organization for so long and how important this moment was. And then he did it again when we were in the team hotel, when they showered and had all their beers in the dressing room, and the families were in the hotel meeting room, and my kids were there, my wife was there, and he did the exact same thing. He walked in, and the first person he came to was me, and I go, my God, this is how special this is for my kids, for him to do this, and he just gets it. And then, like I said, for him to know that I assisted on 5 of his goals and in 895 goals, it just says everything about the guy.
It's funny, I happened to be in the locker room and covering the team when they were coming through Vancouver when LT signed his extension. And so automatically as a journalist, you need Ovi's reaction. And as exuberant as he was for LT, after chirping him as he came off the ice that day, he very quickly made sure to talk about Charlie Lindgren and the importance that he had. And obviously Charlie ultimately re-signs as well. And I just thought it was a glimpse of how dialed in and connected he was to the room and his teammates, how light he keeps it, but also not frivolously. He seems very aware of everything and what's important to the team dynamic. It was kind of eye-opening because all the questions were about LT and he did not waste any time to make sure he got Charlie into the mix as well.
Yeah, and other players in the league. I mean, you saw what he did last week in Minnesota with Marc-Andre Fleury at the end of the game. He called all the guys back on the ice, and he knew that was going to be the last game that they would meet each other. They had a long history, obviously, when Flower was in Pittsburgh, and so he wanted to acknowledge everything that Flower's done and have everybody come back out and shake his hand. And I thought that was just, you don't see that from all the leaders in the league. That was special.
Okay, so I want to get into your career a little bit because it spans some different eras. Let's take it back, and I'm going to rewind, but we like to ask this question of everyone because there's typically only a handful of answers. How did Ole Kolzig become a goaltender? What lit the spark for you?
So I was born in South Africa, which isn't really a hotbed for hockey. Spent a couple of years there. We moved to Copenhagen. My dad was in the hotel business, so we moved to Copenhagen when I was 3. We were there for another year, and then he got transferred to Edmonton. And my dad was a big hockey fan growing up. Never played the game, obviously, in Germany. He played soccer, but he loved watching the Olympics and the hockey. And so obviously he thought it was natural moving to Canada to get his son involved. And so I started out, and we in Edmonton at a young age, you're introduced to the outdoor rinks. And for anybody that's been in Edmonton in January, it's not a pleasant place to be. And so I was learning the game of hockey, and when you're a young guy learning the game, you go through all the positions, and so it was my turn to play net, and it was a really cold evening, and so I was in net, and in mite hockey, there's not a lot of action, right? There's people falling over, and it's just chaos. Anyway, this one kid had a breakaway, happened to get a breakaway, and I was so petrified to get hit by the puck because it was so cold that I just turned around and went behind the net, and so nobody would have predicted that I would have ended up being number one guy in the NHL, winning a Vezina, yada yada yada, based on that night. But my true first time, I think, was I was about 9 years old, and our goalie for some reason didn't make the game, and so they needed somebody to play. I ended up playing the game. I got a shutout, and everybody's patting you on the back, and I thought this is pretty cool. I can see myself doing this. And then it wasn't until I think I got lit up one night that I was like, ooh, maybe this wasn't so good, but I stuck with it, and kind of the rest is history.
I was going to say, and an incredible history. You mentioned the Vezina, multiple Olympics with Germany, 04 World Cup, multiple-time All-Star, still one of only 4 goalies to have a scoreless period in the All-Star game. So from humble beginnings, hiding behind the net, to a heck of a career. It was so different back then, too, and you must experience this on the player development side, perhaps too much. Kids have goalie coaches from such a really young age, and what was once considered a positive and maybe missing, now we've seen that pendulum swing. What about for you? Where did it become something that you just went out and did, and I'm guessing learn from watching others. How was your evolution? I'm guessing you probably didn't have a goalie coach for a while.
Yeah, no, it was. We didn't have YouTube either, so
Right.
I grew up. First, I before I became a goaltender, I lived in Toronto, and I really liked Mike Palmateer. I just thought back then he was probably one of the first guys to really handle the puck, and he was just acrobatic and he just fun to watch. Not somebody that you want to idolize, but fun to watch. So then I really got intrigued with the goaltending position, and I think that's why I stuck with it when I was given that opportunity. And then the Edmonton Oilers came around and Grant Fuhr, and I just absolutely fell in love with Grant Fuhr, his competitiveness, his big, timely big saves, and just the way he played the game. And Patrick Waugh came in, and I think that's where I really established my style. I think most young guys did the butterfly style, and then Ron Hextall came on the scene, and I kind of probably related more to Hexy than I did anybody else because I had a fiery temper. I was a big guy, and so I really started idolizing Hexy. And the ironic thing is, I scored a goal. I was the first Western League guy to score a goal in '89, and I had the Victoriaville, the white Vic with the black lettering that Hexy had, same kind of heel curve. And shortly after I scored, I got this manila envelope in the mail, and it was a 5x7, typical autograph card from the pros, and it was from Hextall, and it said, "Congrats, Ole. Looking forward to many, many times facing each other in the NHL." Yeah, I thought it was just the coolest thing.
Wow.
And so I had a numerous amount of guys that I kind of followed, and I really didn't have a legit goalie coach, I think, until my third year pro, when I was loaned out to Rochester, New York, and I got introduced to Mitch Korn. And so Mitch was my first real guy, and I was kind of, like I said, I was a loan out from Washington, and I'll give Mitch credit. He treated me every bit as nice and showed me the same amount of time as the other guys that were there, that were Buffalo's property. So I learned a lot from that. But my career really took off when Dave Pryor came in '97. New coaching change, new GM change, and Dave had come in, and Dave and I had worked together a couple years prior with the German national team, and we just hit it off. My fiery temper, his laid back demeanor, just kind of offset each other, and he helped me channel my emotions in a different direction, because the emotional part of me was really what was kind of getting in the way of taking that next step and becoming a number one guy. And yeah, so I was just fortunate to be part of the Caps organization. They were so patient with me, and I don't think in today's game, with today's salary cap era, teams aren't as patient with players anymore. You've got a certain window. If you're not developing or in the time frame that they like, generally you move on. But I was fortunate to be with the organization, and they still believed in me. And then, like I said, everything came together for me in '97. But you're right; these young guys now, they're all from a technical standpoint, they're all great when they come. There's the one issue you do have, though, is when your organization has certain philosophical views on the position and how we want it played, and then you have a kid that has a goaltending coach that doesn't necessarily believe in that. That's where the butting of the heads come, and we really have to. Our work's really cut out for us to really show these kids our philosophy really is the right way.
Now, is it when you say that, because I'm imagining a lot, especially in the early years. I mean, although I know Mitch got into technical, I imagine a lot with Dave was probably tactical and a little bit of technical, but it sounds like a lot just, headspace, right? Mental side of things and approach. When you say your philosophy with young kids, is it technical? Is it tactical? Is it a little bit of everything?
It's a combination of everything. We're big about posture. So that we don't want guys, like when they go down the butterfly, we don't want them sitting down too much, because it's tough for them to gain an edge if they need to come across for a rebound. So we're really big on leaning a little bit more forward with their butt a little bit higher, so that then when they do drop, they're able to get access to their edges and be able to move laterally a lot more. Hand positioning, depth, when to take depth, when to retreat a little bit. We've really bought into the recoil philosophy that
Bob
uh,
Essenza and
Bob Essenza had in
yeah.
Boston, right? And so we were really big believers in that, and and not a lot of guys have gone through that. Here's a prime example. Garen Bjorklund played for Medicine Hat Tigers on a very poor Medicine Hat Tiger team, and so he really did. I mean, very athletic kid, developed some poor habits just because he was doing anything and everything to stop the puck, whether just diving all over the place, overshooting the goal, and so his first year pro, he had a back injury, so he missed the entire season. Comes back next year, and all of a sudden he just remembers his time in Medicine Hat, and so it took us a little while to kind of rewire him and retrain him. And I'll give him all the credit in the world this year. He came in, he really bought into what we were saying. He really applied himself in practice, and arguably had one of the all-time great seasons for the South Carolina Stingrays in the ECHL. And now, from the beginning of the year where we were like, well, I think we're just going to move on from him, and now he's back in the picture, and he's won his first two games in the American League on a call-up basis, and so that's a prime example of a guy that bought into our philosophy, worked at it, and now he's reaping the rewards for it.
And it sounds like a prime example of patience too. You talk about the patience the organization had with you to give him this year to sort of see if he would.
Yep.
I love it. The tall thighs and high hips and clearance to be able to move east-west is it's funny because it's a philosophy that I've heard from some coaches for 15 years, and yet it started to disappear as guys started to sink a little bit, and now we see it coming back. So when you see young kids, and I know you're mostly dealing with kids that are already in the prospect level, we hear a lot about, and you said you didn't have YouTube, we do hear a lot about maybe kids don't watch enough hockey, that in a goalie school environment, they look like pros. And I remember having conversations towards mid 2000s, proper leg recovery. Guys like yourself and Curtis Joseph that were never taught it would watch 13-year-olds do it perfectly. But now we've hit this point where technically it looks amazing, but when it's time to play the game, maybe the processing isn't there. Do you see that at all in kids as they get into your window?
Oh yeah, 100%. We call it the gut in, like the just playing goal, just just gut instinct, just stopping the puck, not thinking about, am I doing it beautifully enough? Okay, I'm going to come back over here in great sequence, everything's tight, but I'm not going to get there in time. So I look good, they scored, I look good, maybe I don't, coach is like, oh, it wasn't a bad goal, he just got beat. But are you really trying to stop the puck? Are you doing anything and everything to try to stop the puck? Like, prime example again, 2018 against Las Vegas, game 2 of the Stanley Cup Finals. Braden Holtby just reaches back with a stick. It's kind of a hope play, but that's all he could do at the moment, and arguably the biggest save in Caps history. So it's those type of things. They're a little too robotic and not enough natural instinct. I guess that's what I was trying to say, natural instinct. We like to see more of that, and we really try to preach that. Yeah, we want you technically sound, and we work on that in practice. But when it comes to game time, your natural instincts have to take over at times, because the game is just so fast and so much east-west that you're never going to be able to get to a certain area in a perfect position. You just have to let your body take over and just try to stop the puck.
Well, it's funny because I know exactly the save. I think we all know the save you're talking about. Yeah. And yet there were still sort of, you talked about posture and things. There were elements of biomechanics that allowed him, like if he had been sitting down, does he have the access to turn and get ahead? And
right.
As instinctual as the save makes, the foundation still played a role in it, in having talked to him about that save since then.
You're right. And that's the thing. Like, you can be technically sound and still be able to have that natural instinct, right? Like you just said, like, because he had that technically sound position, or he was technically sound in a position, he was able to get there. And and so you need that combination. I think that's the best way to be. Like, you look at a guy like Jonathan Quick. He's got unbelievable instincts, and he does anything and everything to stop the puck. Go back in the day, Tim Thomas, who wasn't anything beautiful to watch yet, but he was able, and we got a guy in our organization, the same thing, Hunter Shepard. There's not anything, it's not beautiful to watch, but the guy wins wherever he goes. And so there's not one way to play goal. And I think there's too many kids that they think there's one certain way and they just become robots. And that's what we have to get away from.
I think that's my favorite thing about the position is after 25 years of learning about it, there is no absolutes in it. There is no one way. There's principles and foundations, and you can see how they run through things, but there are no absolutes. Do kids watch enough? Like, do you feel like sometimes your prospects could benefit from watching more hockey, or do you get them into straight video sessions too? As Mitch used to say, because obviously he was the goalie coach when you won the Cup too, so you connected on multiple occasions there early in your career, and then on the transitioning to the coaching side, hockey goalie is a game of patterns. How kids connect those patterns. Can you in this role help facilitate that? Or do you think it's that by this point they either have it or don't?
No, I think you can. I think you can teach it or start to ingrain it with these kids. We're fortunate. Like our scouting staff does a fantastic job on vetting players. They do character checks, all this stuff, what type of kids they are. Do they love hockey? Do they watch hockey? Are they just good at it and do something else? So all the kids that we have, they love the game. Like, I'll be in South Carolina and we've got Mitchell Gibson there and Garen Bjorklund and, we'll sit down at dinner or whatever. And they're like, hey, did you see the game last night of the Caps, or did you see the Bears game last night? Man, Clay was awesome. So they are following, whether they're following to see if someone out there falters so that they get an opportunity to, you know what I mean? Like, when am I going to get called up? He didn't play that good last night, or is it a genuine, it doesn't matter. They're watching the game and we do have a pretty good camaraderie. Like everybody in our system gets along. We have a training camp. Scott Murray always puts together a goalie day where we go to a local bar and we play darts and shuffleboard and have a couple of beers and just get to know each other. And so we've got a great group of kids that truly do look out for one another and support each other. When one's starting and one's backing up or the opposite, there's always that support there, because we tell them, hey guys, you're the only two guys on this team that know how to do this. You have to have each other's back because nobody else is going to be there to support you. You guys know what each other are going through. And so we're really proud of the fact that we have a great group of guys that are not out to see each other fail or stab someone in the back. They generally are happy for everybody when they have success.
Does it get overlooked maybe by us on the outside in the media of how important that is at every level? We saw the celebration of tandem and relationship in Boston. You mentioned Bob Asenza and with Linus and with Jeremy. So maybe we're more cognizant of it from the outside, but is that really an important thing?
I think so. I really do. I think the worst thing you could have, and I made it a point when I was a goalie that I would always involve my partner in everything. Like we're basically, became good friends with any partner I had, from Bill Ranford to Rick Tabarachi, Sharpie. I call him Sharpentier. Brent Johnson was one of my good friends. Craig Billington. I always had a really good relationship with my partner, and I just think it frees the guys up. Like you're not worried about what your partner's thinking, or you're worried about this guy saying bad stuff about you or backstabbing you. Like you just one less thing to worry about and just go and play. And then, if you have a tough game, you struggle, you've got somebody you can vent to or complain about, whether it's you had an off night or the guys in front of you weren't playing well. You have somebody that you can relate with. And I think chemistry is the biggest thing in hockey. Like you can get away with it in baseball, you can get away with it a little bit in basketball, but hockey, I think, is the ultimate team sport, and everybody has to have each other's back.
You mentioned like there is no one way to play this position, but we have seen sort of trends towards some commonality in the position. For you, when you played, like, were you a guy that compared notes with, like, were you helping each other out, talking about technique or tactics with your playing partner, or was there so much uniqueness back then compared to how those conversations might be more similar now for your guys?
Well, I was a little different because I was one of the bigger guys in the league, not just from a goaltending standpoint, but players in general. And so my game would be a little bit different than someone else's game. And we would never compare notes, but with Dave being there, we were always together. So whatever Dave was teaching or whatever, we were working on, it was the three of us. And so there wasn't really any need to share anything. I had, because of my size, I could play a little bit different. And I was actually fairly athletic for my size too. So I could be a touch more aggressive and still have that ability to come. I don't know if I could do that now, but the game is it's way too, like I said, it's too fast, too east-west. You can't play that way anymore. But for us, my philosophy was forcing a guy to shoot wide was just as good as making a save. You wouldn't get recognition for it as far as stats go. It wouldn't go towards your save percentage, but that's the way we played the game, forcing guys to miss the net. And so, yeah, I always give these long-winded answers, but
no, they're great. They're fantastic. I'm making notes as you go.
We never sat there and actually collaborated, but I don't know. I don't know if the guys nowadays do.
Some do, some don't. That's why I was just curious, right? I hear from different situations. I mean, even like Comrie and Hellebuck have the best relationship in the world. They talk about everything, but they clearly can't play the game the exact same way. So it's
right.
There's a uniqueness.
Yeah, and Eric's a goalie nerd. Like I had him in Tri-Cities. You'd never think he came from money. The way that this kid just loved hockey and just anything and everything about goaltending. And actually, 2 weeks ago, maybe it's longer than that, maybe a month ago, Winnipeg came into town, and I just happened to be in town. And Connor had reached out to our PR guy and said he wanted to meet me. He's never met me, and he was the reason why he wears I'm the reason he wears 37. So we met after the game. It was pretty cool. And then Eric was there, and obviously I had Eric in Tri-Cities, so that was pretty cool. Scotty Arneal, the head coach, he was assistant in Wash for a while, so he was there for a bit. And then Wade Flaherty, I played against Flats in the Western League, and then my brief time as a goalie coach, we interacted quite a bit, so it was pretty cool. We had like five of us, other than Scotty, with four goalie nerds just sitting there and BSing and catching up, and I thought it was pretty cool that Connor set that all up. But
that's a really neat moment.
Yeah, I could definitely see Eric wanting to compare notes because he's just all about goaltending.
What as your career evolved, you mentioned 97 and the emotional side of it. Maybe touch on that because there's probably lessons you learned from Dave in terms of managing your emotions and that fire, which we want, right? We want competitiveness. How did it get in your way, and how were you able to channel it differently? What clicked that allowed you to approach it differently?
Yeah, so I mean, God, I had a short fuse. So if I let in a bad goal or if things weren't going my way, I didn't know how to move on from it. And more times than not, they come down and within a minute, I get scored on again, just because I had my mind on something else. And how can I let that go in, or this and that, or whatever it was. I just couldn't channel myself and just stay focused in the moment. And it kept me from. I mean, there were so many times where I was given the opportunity to take the ball and run with Washington, and more times than not, I never did. Whether it was we didn't play well as a team in that moment, I didn't play well, whatever it was, it never happened. And so then Dave came in, and we just basically had a sit down. And actually, it started with me in Rochester. I got a book, and I read it was a mental toughness book, and so I just took it upon myself that year to just kind of read and adapt some tools that when I started having negative thoughts, to just verbally tell myself to stop, reset. Just kind of like Holtz did with the water, where he throw it up, get his eyes on it, and just stay focused. And so for me, it was just a word I used, and it really helped me that year in Roch. I had it was my best pro career up till that point. Right? End up losing in the Calder Cup to Cape Breton, but I took some big steps on my own. And now Dave came in, and Dave kind of helped me take that next step. And where if my teammates are pissing me off in practice, like instead of taking the puck out and then shooting it at them, why not just piss them off by just focusing on stopping them the next time they come down? And it was just little things like that. Then all of a sudden it went from, guys had less welts in the back of their legs and getting more pissed off with me because I was stopping them, and then I was chirping them. And so it was just little things like that. And then all of a sudden it just carried over into a game. And, that first training camp Dave was there was the best training camp I had since my first year pro, or since my first training camp when I made the team out of camp at 19. And, we had new coaches. Ron Wilson was there. Billy Ranford had just gotten traded there at the end of last year. Billy had a great camp as well. And so Billy was the de facto starter going into the season. And, but I really felt good about my game and where I was at. And we were in Toronto opening night, and Toronto had not been good to me. And my second game pro when I was 19 was in Toronto. Had a great first half of the game. We were up 4-0. Ended up losing the game 8-4. And I was on a plane back to junior shortly after. But anyway, so first period, opening night, Billy takes one in the nether regions, and finishes the period. But in the dressing room, he's like, "I can't. This is killing me. I can't go." So they put me in net. Said, "You're going to finish it out." And we had a 5-0 lead at the time, and just because of my history in Toronto, I was like, "Oh God, don't blow this. Last time I was there, the exact opposite of what I was just telling you I worked on. I'm starting to, play games with myself. So first minute of the second period, I make a grade A save, and then all of a sudden those thoughts kind of went away, and the rest was history. We ended up finishing the game 5-0 or 5-1, and it took Billy a couple of weeks to get back, but by then I just finally said to myself, "Here's your opportunity," and I just took it and ran with it. And I had a breakout year. I played in the All-Star game. I was second team. Yeah, maybe not. I don't know if I was an All-Star that year, but at the end of the year. But we ended up going to the Stanley Cup Finals. We lose to Detroit in 4, unfortunately. But so that was the opening. And I said I give a lot of credit to Dave Pryor for really steering me in a different direction.
I'm curious. And if you're not comfortable, that's fine. But I'm curious what the word was that you used to refocus, because we see guys now, they'll write it on sticks and blockers and catchphrases.
Yeah, no, for me it was just something simple like stop, like just literally yelling in my head, "Stop," and just and then just rechannel to what the moment was at, just whether it was the face off at center ice or whatever it was. But that was it. It was just stop. And over time that kind of just faded away because I didn't need it anymore. And yeah, so these kids that get drafted, like there's a reason why they get drafted. They have the physical ability, they have the skill set, whatever it is. More times than not, when guys don't end up having any sort of a pro career, much less NHL career, it's usually because of what they got between their ears, and they haven't figured out the mental side of it. It is such a pivotal part of goaltending. So many guys play games with themselves, whether it's, coach hates me, I'm getting screwed over, why didn't I do that? Or why didn't that happen to me? Or I wish the guys could have played like that in front of me. All these things that it's just useless stuff that the guys think of that it just fogs everything up. And if they can get over that hurdle and just focus on the task at hand, you're going to see so many better goaltenders, and or guys that you thought were going to be good goaltenders pro that fizzle out. Yeah. I wish I would have got a top of the mental game a lot sooner. Maybe I would have had more games in the NHL, maybe more wins. Who knows?
Well, I was going to say 17 NHL seasons is pretty impressive to me. Starting at 19, these kids do have access to that, it seems more. Like you said, like there's more, you took it upon yourself to read a book that helped you, but a lot of these kids have advisors, have, mental sort of skills coaches. And it's funny because as soon as you talked about Holt being in the water, we did a seminar with Holtz and John Stevenson here at InGoal during the pandemic. And it wasn't about constantly focusing for 60 minutes. John said it was about recognizing that human nature is your focus is going to drift, knowing when it does, recognizing it, and finding tools to pull it back in. Yeah. Is that part of the messaging that you give now too?
Oh, for sure. Because if you can't stay, 60 minutes is a long time to keep your focus. And there's opportunities to kind of just let your just thoughts linger a little bit. But then once the opposition hits a certain point on the ice, then it's like, okay, re-engage, we're all human, or obviously we're all humans, but it's all human nature to kind of just drift off. And some guys have, ADD, attention deficit disorder, and they've obviously got to work at it harder than other guys. But we're all victims of it at some point. But you're right, you just got to develop the tools to get yourself back re-engaged.
Well, and that's funny, like you said, and they do have more tools now than ever. They have more access to this stuff, and yet I still hear the same things. Hey, why isn't the team playing as well for me as they are? That is human nature. It can creep in, so it must be nice to have somebody who's been through it that they can talk to.
For sure. And our big thing with our guys is no excuses. Yeah, your D-man screwed up in front of you, but what about the goal you gave up from center ice last week? You know what I mean? All things even out. It's probably the biggest game of mistakes out there. And it's just the team that makes the fewest, or the players that make the fewest, are the ones that become successful. So everybody's prone to mistakes. Well, we're not immune to it. Just focus on what you can do, and focus on bailing your teammate out after he does make a mistake, because I know they'll do the same for you when you make a mistake.
We've heard that too from different mental skills coaches. Embrace a penalty kill. Don't be upset that your team took a penalty in the final 2 minutes. See as an opportunity. Want those types of challenges.
Always put a positive spin on it.
Love it. Oli, I got one more because I'm famous for asking one last question, and I want to tie it back into, we were talking about Ovi earlier. The shot. I'm guessing that early career Oli Kolzig might not have been as patient with early career Alex Ovechkin in practice. I've had this conversation with Holtz as well. So I wanted to first ask, what was it like facing it in practice, and did you have to get him to tone it down a little bit? And then we've had some guys tell us about the unique nature of it and how much they think that is why he's continued to there's lots of reasons, but that is one of the big ones, because that shot is so unpredictable and can come off that blade in so many different ways. What were your memories, both from a practice standpoint and from the role you think it played in his success?
So the very first practice we had was an informal practice before training camp, and there's just a handful of us out on the ice. And I'd met Ovi before, the year before. It was a lockout. I was playing in Germany, and he was in Cologne for some reason, and we were playing there, and we never really drafted him, and he knew of me and I knew of him, and so we met, and there was obviously a language barrier, but he had this big smile on his face, and I go, wow, this, most Russians are very standoffish and takes them a while to gain your trust, but right away Ovi had the smile on his face, and there was just a personality there. So anyway, we have our first informal practice before camp, and Ovi took a one-timer on me, and I was just like, whoa. I said, I'm so thankful. I'm not happy I let in the goal, but I'm just thankful it didn't hit me. It just had it had a sizzle when it went by you. It was just a bomb. And I remember going to Ovi right after. I go, hey, that was pretty impressive. I don't need to see that every day. So could you just, when you're coming down on me, just take a snapshot or whatever. And to his credit, he did. When we did power play drills in practice, he would take a one-timer, but he would keep it on the ice. Or, he would shoot it at 75%. And then when it was warm up, he would come take one step over the blue line, snapshot. So again, he had that respect with his older teammates. And, we would definitely rib each other throughout practice. He loved to trash talk. He couldn't understand some of the times when he was trash talking you, but if he scored on you, he'd let you know. If I stopped him, I'd let him know. But yeah, he was very respectful when it came to that. I don't know if Holtz pissed him off, and that's why he kept shooting hard on Holtz. But with me, he was pretty good. As far as the shot itself goes, he's got such a big toe hook on his stick, and he's such a powerful man. I mean, he's like 250 and just big. I don't think people understand how big he is. And when he gets that momentum behind that one-timer, if he gets it right in the crook of that blade, it's a catapult, and it's gone, and you just can't catch up to it. You just hope he either misses the net or he hits you, which part of you is like, don't hit me, but you don't want it to go in the net, so it's got to hit you. And then even if he gets it off the toe or off the heel a little bit, it puts this movement on the puck, but with velocity. So it's tough to get a read on where it's going. It'll dip. It just whatever. It is just. There's a reason why he's the greatest goal scorer ever. Just a combination of power, timing, that stick. It's just everything.
Love it. I do actually. I apologize, but I am going to ask one more because I meant to ask this earlier.
You're like Dale Hunter when we're at the bar. Let's have one more.
There you go. It's the first time I'm going to hear about this one. But I did want to talk you at a time when not everyone did. You were a really strong advocate. You started Athletes Against Autism, or in support of it. I do some work with Canucks Autism Network and have been involved with that for a number of years here. Just wanted to sort of catch up. I know you also part ownership, the Tri-City Americans still retain a small ownership role there. The things you're doing off the ice, Oli, just a chance to sort of talk about why they're important to you, how you're still involved, and make sure we spread some of that message as well.
Yeah, so my son was born in 2001, and he went in for his 15-month appointment, and our pediatrician was very, very knowledgeable on autism, which back then, in 2001, wasn't, everybody just thought of Rain Man, or it just wasn't as well known as it is now. Now it seems like every week you're hearing something about autism and the breakthroughs they have and this and that, but it wasn't the case back then. So he got diagnosed at 15 months, and the first part of the nightmare was, obviously getting the diagnosis. The second part is trying to find, the interventions for your son and the therapies, because you get on the computer and there is just a world of different stuff, and not everything works the same for every kid. Different combinations work for one kid, doesn't necessarily work for another kid. So we really spent a lot of time on getting advice and working on finding what's going to work great for our son. We were fortunate that I got put in touch with Scott Mellenby through Stu Barnes, because Scotty's boy Carter is autistic, and so Stewie set the meeting up, and I talked with Scotty for God, it seemed like an hour or two, and he was awesome. He told us, this kind of go this way, go that way. This is what we did. Here's somebody you can be put in touch with. And then he was also brutally honest. He says, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard in your marriage. It's going to be hard on everything. And so once we got our son put in the right direction and everything in place, a year later, Byron Defoe's son, who's my godson, gets diagnosed with autism. And, got together with Byron, and Byron kind of went through the same thing, trying to have to find all these things. And so we got together and said, hey, listen, why don't we put our group together, whatever, get Scotty involved, make, autism awareness a lot more prevalent. And so we established Athletes Against Autism. And the only reason we did Athletes Against Autism was because it was AAA, right? It was an easy moniker to remember.
Yeah.
Hindsight, we probably should have said Athletes for Autism. But anyway, we partnered up with Autism Speaks, and we had it was probably a 4 or 5 year run. We ended up getting Ernie Els on board. And then the recession hit in '08, and just like any other company, the charities were affected as well. So unfortunately, some of the first cuts that Autism Speaks did was, they cut the Athletes Against Autism program, which was too bad, but it was what it was. And so I ended up starting my own foundation here in Tri-Cities, the Carson Kolzig Foundation, which was obviously in light of my son. And what we did is we helped fund a Responding to Autism Center, which is a center where families can go if they suspect anything's wrong with their child. 2-3 times a month they can go there. They'll have pediatricians there that can diagnose your son, kind of, or kid, and direct them in the right area. That center now has grown to so these kids, when they were 3-4 years old, are now young adults, and so now they're doing placement programs. So they're helping these kids develop tools, or so that they could just go to get jobs. And so it's a great little, it's in our little community. It's not on a national stage anymore, but Obviously autism is near and dear to my heart, we were fortunate because we had the means. We were fortunate because we had a lot of, we had the Children's Hospital in DC, so we were fortunate in a lot of ways that we were helped out quite a bit. And there's a lot of people that don't have those fortunes that we did. So we're just trying to, give back as best we can and help those families out that, like I said, aren't as fortunate as I was.
I appreciate that. I know a lot of families do too. So, and also I appreciate your time today. I asked for a lot of it, Ole, and I enjoyed every minute of it. So thank you.
Yeah, I love these things. I love talking shop and all things hockey. So I'm glad I came on finally.
Awesome. I really appreciate it. And I still have more questions. Just means a couple years from now, we'll have to do a part 2.
We'll have to do it again. Yeah.
What was your favorite Olaf Kolzig setup? Do you remember? The masks were great, but then the pads and the gloves were outstanding.
Yeah, there's a really, really nice one actually on the cover for this podcast. One of my favorite ones. So go check that out. We had a photographer down in Florida who generously shared a whole bunch of his sort of vintage stuff with us, and so they're part of some of the things that we get to. And I managed to pull one out of Olaf Kolzig.
We kind of talked about sort of like he came around at a time, we talked about proper leg recovery and modernizing his game, and the game was kind of changing around then. I think of his Heaton setups, but then also like he was kind of one of the RBK guys at one point as well. And it looks like a bit of a hybrid setup between old school soft and sort of the new core pad. So I actually regret a little bit not asking him about some of his gear and some of the evolution of that during his career as part of that interview. But as we've said many times before, it just sets us up nicely for a part 2.
I look forward to that. I'm writing it down right now. Before we say goodbye, next week, 300. Good reminder for everybody to make sure you bookmark it, you rate, you like, you subscribe, whatever allows you to be on the lookout for In Goal Radio, the podcast, episode 300.
It's a timely one too, right? Wrapping up the regular season, wrapping up the year, wrapping up the career of Marc-Andre Fleury, our featured guest for episode 300. We want to make sure we had a good one. And there are a few better guys than Flower in the league, and few that have played more or as long as him. First ballot Hall of Famer, and we've got him for episode 300 on the In Goal Radio podcast.
Have fun in Alberta, boys.
Wish you could join us.
I would fly and meet you there.
Okay.
You don't want to be the fourth guy in the little V-dub drive?
I don't mind driving.
It's not the V-dub, buddy.
I would want to drive. I'm not a good passenger over that time. I get bored.
You can drive.
Okay.
I'll pick you up at the airport in Victoria and you can drive.
The question is, would you drive with me?
With you driving?
Yeah.
No, you drive way too fast.
I have a small group of friends that I golf with every summer. Well, we used to golf once a summer that absolutely refuse if I'm driving.
Yeah, you just drive too fast. I don't need to get there. I don't need to get there. Okay.
I guess I can understand why.
I don't need to get there that fast. I'll meet you there. Fine with that. And we'll see you at episode 300 of In Goal Radio, the podcast. Enjoy the week, everybody.